All right. Thank you for joining me today. This is the Producer's Journal podcast, and my name is Derek. And as you know by now, I have this podcast so I can tell stories about my experience as a full-time podcast producer and agency owner. I own a production company called Shelby Road Productions. And rather than try to come up with informational content and telling you the 3 top ways to do X and the 5 best ways to do Y, I'm hoping that my stories will help you learn in that way, because this is the kind of content that I'm comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with the education stuff. So here I am, and I'm trying to get as real. Well, I'm trying to get as real as possible always, but I'm trying to be in real time. Hence, this is a journal, and that's what you do in a journal. So I have some entries, as I'm calling them, 1 through 6 before this one. Some are present and some are backstories. This is going to be a present one. What I want to talk about today is cash flow, because today I was doing my weekly invoicing, and also it landed where today is the day I wanted to reconcile all of my books for June. And it just got me to thinking about cash flow and how stressful it can be, and how I have just recently finally figured out and how to further tweak my invoice scheduling as far as how I schedule my invoices and push them out to my clients. And I'm trying to spread them out more. Instead of just invoicing on the 1st and 15th, I'm invoicing every Friday, and I'm breaking the client base down into groups. Some still need to be invoiced monthly, but rather than invoice them all on the 1st, I'm invoicing some on the 1st, 8th, 15th, and 21st, or something like that. And then I have a group of clients that just come and go, and they'll drop a batch on me. So what I was doing is, if I completed a batch for them, let's say June 5th, I wouldn't invoice until June 15th. Well, that's 10 days of kill time. So now I'm just invoicing those kind of clients immediately. So as a way to hopefully get a more steadier flow of income coming in. And here's why, because, and I talked about this previously, covering payroll can be a nightmare. And what I'm finding is, the more you grow, the harder it is to keep up with payroll, because the cash can't catch up to where the business is at. So here's an example. Let's say clean slate, I have no income coming, and I have one editor, and I get a job. It's a big job, and it's $10,000. Okay, huge job. And my editor is doing his thing, and after a month, the project is over, and invoice the client, send that off. But now I got to pay my guy, right? Now let's say 40% is the payroll. So I owe him $4,000, but the client is net 30, or maybe even net 60. And what that means is, net 30 is, it's going to be at least a month before you get your money. Net 60, 2 months. So you can already see there's an imbalance. The money coming back in is far slower than the money I have to push out to my contractor, my editor. So am I going to make him wait? No, I'm not going to make him wait 2 months to get that payment. I have to pay him. So 40%, that's $4,000. Do I have $4,000 in cash to be able to pay said editor? I actually don't at this moment. I'm close, but I have some other options, and maybe I'll talk about those too. But I'm asking you, as you listen to this, do you have that ability? Do you have that kind of cash flow to cover payroll when you have tons of money in open invoices and they're taking forever to come in because you invoice them all at once on one day of a month? So now you're not going to have anything coming in for 2 months, 1 month, 2 months, whatever it may be. So the lesson learned is spread out your invoicing as much as possible. So let me give you a genuine example of where I'm at. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be raw. I'm going to give you some numbers that I am currently dealing with. So far right now, in open invoices, I have $18,197 owed to me. So then if the payroll margin is 40%, then I will technically owe $7,279 in labor based off of that work. Okay. The next payroll is due on July 15th. As I record this, it's July 8th. So it's exactly 1 week from today is when the next payroll is due. I pay every other week, 1st and 15th. So I'm paying bi-monthly or bi-weekly, twice a month, but then I have invoices coming in 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. You see what I'm saying? You catching my drift here? So the payroll that I'm due to pay on the 15th is $3,528.65. That's what is going out the 15th. As of today, in my payroll savings, I have $1,501.82. So I'm short $2,026.83. And that's enough to make your ass pucker, isn't it? So I have to hope and pray that some invoices drop in between now and next Friday. If I had to pay that payroll right now, I couldn't do it based off of how I allocate all of my savings. Now, I don't want to bury anyone in the weeds on this entry, but this is something I will talk about at some point. Percentage allocation and how I divide my money up. Every dollar revenue comes in gets split into different envelopes, if you will. It's like the old envelope system. When you get paid in cash, you pay your rent, so you put money in your rent. Once it's paid, then you move to the next envelope or whatever. You have an envelope for savings. You just throw $20 in there when you can. So I divide all of my revenue into percentage points, and then I divvy it up when it comes in. So I know exactly what I have to pay for payroll, so I know I'm short. This is where cash comes in. Cash is fucking king. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. Cash is king. It's your best friend, and it will keep you from going bankrupt. You could be a successful business and growing at a rate too fast and go bankrupt because the cash just can't keep up with the payroll and expenses and overhead because it takes forever for people to pay. And that's just the nature of the business. So, do I have cash? Do I have cash to cover the $2,026 that I'm short on payroll? I do. I do have enough cash for that. But you know where that cash is? That cash is in the tax put away envelope, where I put a certain percentage of every dollar that comes into the other envelope. Actually, I'm not doing envelopes. They're lines in a spreadsheet, but you get the drift. So I do have the cash for it. And I've pulled from my tax envelope plenty of times, just did it last payroll. So thankfully I had the cash. What if I didn't? What if I was not smart in saving my money for taxes and was really just overspending on equipment, computers, microphones, and just literally living hand to mouth? And then you have this situation where you can't cover payroll and you have zero cash. What do you do? Well, maybe you have a business credit card. So now you have to use your credit card to pay your guys. That sucks because now you're paying interest on top of that payroll. Or you can save money and be a little smarter and save some cash. And the tax put away is a good example of that because it sits. Now, I haven't been able to even pay one quarterly this year because I keep having to dip into it. But here's the key. What you need to do is pay it back. So I always pay it back. Whenever I have to grab $1,000 from my tax amount, from my tax money, I will make a note. $1,000 owed from payroll. Make that note. Because then what will happen is, in the middle of a pay period or whatever, you'll finally get a nice dump of money. in 1 week's time, you'll get like $5,000 coming in. And it's like, okay. So then you allocate everything out. I divide that revenue up into different envelopes. And now my payroll envelope filled up, but I still owe my tax envelope. So that's when I go, okay, and I subtract $1,000 from my payroll envelope and put it in my tax envelope. And now we're straight. I didn't lose money. I didn't just take $1,000 for my taxes and then that's it. No, I still need to keep that $1,000. Still need to save it so I can pay my taxes. So I got to pay it back. Cash is king. My cash is limited though. So what do I do? I'm sorry, I keep saying so. That's awful. I'm just realizing I'm doing it. It's probably so annoying. Another good option is credit line. A line of credit, really, is what I'm trying to say. And what's great about it is it's cash available to you. Yes, there's interest, definitely lower than a credit card, but it's there for an emergency. And I've done that too. I've had to do that on my personal side. I have a line of credit on both business and personal. And business was a little slow and a little honky and a little weird. So for that month or that week, I didn't take my draw because I draw a certain amount every week for myself. And I just didn't take it. So I wouldn't exhaust some of the funds that I was trying to spread around in the business. But then what I had to do was pull $1,000 from my personal line of credit. Made note of it. And then now I, in essence, took a $1,000 loan that I have to pay back. Of course, there's interest, like I said, but it's better than a credit card. It's there for an emergency. If you always make sure that you pay back the money you borrow to stay afloat from yourself, you're borrowing money from yourself. If you're borrowing money from yourself or a line of credit, then you're doing okay as long as you keep up and you pay back. Like, okay, so cash is king. And if you borrow from yourself, pay yourself back, pay it back. And then eventually stuff starts catching up and you can kind of get steam and get ahead. I put myself in a position where I was invoicing incorrectly. I've been invoicing the same way for a long time and everything was okay. But then it took my biggest client to lose a couple of my invoices. And it took a long time to finally get paid on 3 different invoices. Which was a total of, I think it was $8,500, somewhere around there. And it took me 2 months to get that. And that really flipped me upside down. Even when it dumped in, I still am playing catch up. And now that is why I'm changing my invoice schedule. And I don't want to go any further than this. I don't want these entries to be super long. Just know that this podcast is just as much for me than it is for you. Because I just like getting on this microphone and spewing this stuff out in story form or just venting out. But this is very current for me. This is on top of mind because this is what I'm experiencing right now. And that's the difference between trying to figure out the 5 best ways for you to avoid this. I'm just telling you what's going on right now and the things I'm trying to change, the mistakes I've been making to put myself in this position, and the kind of vulnerability it can create and the anxiety. And then that can turn into depression. When I don't have any money to draw for myself, that's depressing. That's a bummer. So be careful, save your money. Please check out my website, shelbyroweproductions.com, and pay me a visit over on Instagram at Shelby Rowe Productions LLC and drop me a message. Thank you.